May 3rd, 1999 marks the beginning of the 319 non-point source Yellow Creek Phase 1A and 1B project. The sign you see in the background shows the name of the project and the participants for the Phase 1 project area. At the base of the sign is one of the engineering conceptual designs. State Route 954 is the road next to the remediation. This area was actually the location of the old Mico tipple of the Appalachia-Mico Railroad that came through this area. This is the upper area next to State Route 954 that was a large refuse pile with some very good coal in it. Removal of the refuse pile and reclamation of the land was necessary before we could start construction of pond number 1, the first receiving pond next to the highway. What you are seeing is the coal trucks coming in and out and being loaded with the coal refuse, which they are hauling off to the reclaimed area. In the background, you can see smoke and some fire. There was a quantity of garbage and old furniture in the area, and we had secured a burn permit to burn some of the material on site. Much of the garbage and old furniture was removed, however, and taken to a landfill. This is a view from the other side of Lower State Route 954, looking at that reclaimed area after all the refuse possible was removed. We are looking over towards White Township and the bridge over Yellow Creek. White Township lies in a northeast direction from this point. Across the road is the entrance to the other portion of the State Game Lands 273. Again, the beginning of the project area for Phase 1 is seen. Discharge for Phase 1A enters from the lower right-hand corner and comes underneath the road through a culvert from the game lands on the other side of the highway. Now we are looking at surveyor's marker, the first receiving pond for acid mine drainage treatment. Notice the water in the basin of the first area. This whole project is situated in a swampy area directly alongside of Yellow Creek. As it turns out, this is the old floodplain of Yellow Creek. The Yellow Creek floodplain is totally saturated with water. The greatest problem experienced by the construction crews was the constant presence of water, muck, and mud that will be seen later. This area and the area downstream for approximately 2,000 feet in the swampland was totally saturated with acid mine drainage, high aluminum levels, and high iron levels. pH of the water was about 3. This was the first baseline marker for the survey crew to lay out the ponds that make up the treatment systems of 1A and 1B. This is another view of the swamp area. On the left side of the rail bed are the old impounded water areas that were a natural feature due to the building of the railroad. This is the second source of acid mine drainage that comes across State Route 954, as you can see on the hillside, into this area. We turned this area into a receiving and holding pond before running it underneath the rail bed into treatment system 1B. This marker is for 1B in a southwest direction with the elevation shown on the marker. The source of the acid mine drainage comes under State Route 954 into the pools onto the other side of the rail bed before passing through the culvert under the old railroad bed into the treatment area. This water also has high acid, iron, and aluminum levels and a very low pH. This is the culvert discharge from under the rail bed, and this is in the area of what will become the treatment pond for Yellow Creek Phase 1B. This pipe is actually discharging from the water supply of the old town of Mico. The pH of the water is not very low, and in actuality, the water quality is fairly decent. the townspeople collected the water at the top end of their village for their usage. This is the start of construction in the Upper Phase 1 area, and we are using the 12 regional equipment centers surplus military vehicles to haul the sludge out so we could replace it with treatment cells. As you will notice, the excavator worked continuously in water and sludge throughout the construction of the entire 1A and 1B project. They essentially hauled the entire swamp in the sections they wanted to build down the railroad bed to the borrow pit area. The borrow pit was also the source of clay to fill the treatment cells and served as the disposal site for the swamp material. This material was put on a clay layer and covered with alkaline fluidized bed ash to neutralize acidity. Observe that this area is always wet. Here is the view of the same truck delivering its cargo down the rail bed to the borrow pit at the end of the 2,000-foot project. The material you see the excavator removing is coal sludge. Coal material and refuse was dumped right along the rail bed into the swamp for over 50 years, and it needed to be removed and replaced with good clay. Finally, the decision was made to isolate areas where they could try to get down to some kind of bedrock and dry area to work on. There were some cases in which the operator was literally trying to bucket the water out of the swamp to get a base to work on. You can see the water splashing. The water is different colors, brown, black, yellow to reddish brown, and the muck was always present. See the iron deposits laying in what was left of the old swamp. Some of the vegetative material had to be removed in order to get room enough to build the treatment system. You can see the green grasses and mosses growing in the contaminated swamp. At this point, it was decided to do a ditching to try and drain the water off to the side and through the dike. The dike can be seen in the distance. This dike was encompassing the area to hold a wetland which would finally receive the water from the treatment systems. You can see from the tilt of the excavator that he is not on too solid of ground at this time. Later, the excavator did go over onto its side and had to be righted by other equipment. This occurrence was not gotten on film. You can see the ditch where they are trying to drain the upper section through the dike into the stream area on the other side. There were usually 5 to 6 men working in this area at one time. While the excavator at the upper end was working on the start of the first treatment system, men were looking for dead snags and trees at the lower end of the swamp. These trees were cleared out by the use of the chainsaws in order to make room in the area for the completion of the treatment system excavation. At all times, attempts were being made to salvage these trees and plants that were natural to the area and could be saved. Notice the pile of swampland materials to the right of the screen. This is the old mosses and vegetation that was down in the swamp. This is another view of the excavator cleaning out the sludge. They are still working in phase 1 to get the water out to put in a clay base for the first pond. Notice that the excavator is down at a lower elevation than the earlier pit. Water came back into the pond again. They are trying to remove the water again so that they can start building the first pond by hauling clay from the borrow pit. This is some of the rock structure that is in the old floodplain, and what you are looking at is the old creek bed. It has meandered back and forth down the valley, cutting the path of the stream for centuries. This is the berm of the dike as it was built in the surrounding area to isolate the adjacent wetlands from the treatment systems. The wetlands are the receiving areas. This is a view down the dike along Yellow Creek. As we walked down the dike, there were frequent bear prints seen on the dike, especially after weekends. Lastly, there is a view of an engineer's sketch of the project and the arrival of winter at the treatment system. Both ponds are now completed and in operation. The first series of ponds went into operation December 31st, 1999.